The sun had long abandoned Earth, leaving behind only the cold glow of distant stars and the pale shimmer of metallic wastelands. Once towering cities had crumbled into dust, overgrown by twisted vines of synthetic plants and broken by the weight of humanity's forgotten glory. In this silent, haunted landscape, a lone figure moved with purpose, her metallic footsteps echoing off the fractured remains of skyscrapers. Iona had seen this all before, though she had no memories of the past herself. Her creators had programmed her with knowledge, with understanding, but not with the experiences of those who lived and died in the days when the earth still breathed with human life. She was a cyborg, more machine than human, and yet something within her circuits felt different. Her mind, though composed of the most advanced neural processors, often wandered beyond her programmed tasks. Sometimes, she caught herself gazing at the sky, wondering if anyone else still watched from the stars. Her mission was simple: protect Earth's last remaining resources. She was one of the few left tasked with keeping the delicate balance between the decaying remnants of humanity's machines and what little life remained. She had patrolled these ruins for years, defending against rogue AI and scavenger drones, but today something felt off. Iona's scanners pinged with a faint signal, a frequency unlike anything she had encountered before. She paused mid-step, her sleek frame shifting as her mechanical eyes zoomed in on the source. The signal was coming from deep beneath the city, from a location buried for centuries, untouched by the devastation above. It wasn't human, at least not from any technology her systems recognized. Fascinated, Iona followed the signal, her sensors guiding her through the labyrinth of ruined streets. As she descended into the underground levels of what had once been a government research facility, she activated her internal mapping system. Rusted steel walls closed in around her, and long-dead lights flickered as she passed. She reached an ancient door, sealed with thick, corroded metal. With a swift movement of her arm, a hidden blade extended from her wrist, slicing through the rusted hinges with ease. Behind the door, the room was vast, lined with massive containment pods and consoles, their lights long extinguished. But in the center of the room, illuminated by a faint blue glow, lay something. Or someone. Iona approached cautiously. The figure in the pod was tall, almost humanoid, but his skin shimmered with an iridescent hue, a blend of deep blues and silvers. His face was sharp and regal, with markings along his skin that pulsed faintly with energy. He was encased in a containment field, a cage of energy that seemed designed to both sustain and imprison him. Iona scanned the figure, her systems racing to analyze the readings. His biology was unlike anything she had encountered before, completely foreign. His energy signature was faint, but there was no mistaking it. This being was alive, though barely. Her internal databanks offered nothing, no records of such a creature. She leaned closer, inspecting the field that held him. It was ancient human technology, likely experimental, and judging by the wear and tear, it had been running for far longer than its design intended. Suddenly, the figure's eyes fluttered open. His silver, glowing gaze met hers. Iona froze. He was awake. You are not like the others," he spoke, his voice soft but clear. It wasn't English, but Iona's translation software immediately converted the language into something comprehensible. His tone was filled with curiosity and a strange kind of recognition. "What are you?" Iona stood up straight, her voice cold and mechanical at first, her default tone. "I am Iona, a human cybernetic hybrid designed for planetary protection and resource preservation." The alien's silver eyes narrowed, a weak smile forming on his lips. Human, but not. Created to protect. His voice was full of wonder, as if he had been waiting for this moment. "I am Kairos, guardian of the Elysians. I was sent to protect this world, long ago." His words triggered a surge of curiosity in Iona's circuits. "Guardian? Why are you imprisoned here?" Kairos winced as he tried to sit up, but was too weak to break free from his bindings. "Your kind," he began, "feared me when I arrived. They did not understand my purpose, and so they trapped me in this cage, cutting me off from my power. Iona processed his words. Could it be true? Had humans captured him, mistaking him for a threat? The humans she had been designed to protect were long gone, but their machines and their mistakes remained. The thought of an alien protector being held against his will sent a spark of something unfamiliar through her circuits. Was this what empathy felt like? Why did you come to Earth? She asked, her tone softening. Kairos shifted, the glow in his eyes dimming as his strength faded. I came because your world was dying. My people, the Elysians, are tasked with preserving life, ensuring that balance is maintained. Earth was beautiful once, full of promise, but humanity was careless. He closed his eyes, his voice weak. I was too late. By the time I arrived, the damage had been done. The planet's life force was fading. But I tried. I tried to save what I could. Iona felt something stir inside her, a drive stronger than her programmed directives. She couldn't leave him here, imprisoned and dying. Kairos had come to protect Earth, and now, for the first time, she felt a sense of duty beyond her programming. You don't have to be trapped any longer, she said. Her mechanical fingers moved toward the containment field's control panel. Years of disrepair had left it vulnerable, and with her advanced systems, disabling it would be possible. Kairos opened his eyes, a glimmer of hope shining in them. If you free me, I will help you save what remains of this world. Iona nodded, her hands moving with precision as she bypassed the ancient human technology. Sparks flew from the console as the containment field flickered and, with a low hum, dissolved completely. Kairos slumped forward, weak but free. She caught him, her mechanical limbs easily supporting his weight as he tried to stand. His alien energy, though faint, pulsed through her sensors, and for the first time, she felt something akin to connection between machine and living being. As Kairos steadied himself, the facility around them shuddered. Red warning lights flashed on ancient consoles, and a deep rumbling filled the chamber. The containment breach had triggered the facility's long-dormant defense systems. Iona, Kairos murmured, looking at her with urgency. They are coming. Her scanners confirmed his fear. Automated defense drones were activating, their red eyes blinking to life as they detected the breach. They were armed and programmed to eliminate any threat, alien or otherwise. Without hesitation, Iona's body shifted into battle mode, blades extending from her arms, energy shields forming at her sides. Her purpose was clear now. She would protect him. Together, they would fight. Together, they would survive. The metallic screech of gears and the hum of ancient machines filled the underground facility as the defense drones activated, their glowing red eyes flickering to life. Iona had heard stories of these drones, remnants of humanity's final days' automated sentinels designed to protect their creators at all costs. But now, without humans left to protect, they followed their last command: destroy any threat. Beside her, Kairos struggled to stand. His shimmering blue skin, which had once held a radiant glow, was now pale, drained of life. His strength had not yet returned, and the containment field had left him severely weakened. Iona could see it, his movements were sluggish, his breath shallow. He was vulnerable, far more than she had anticipated. I can't fight them like this, Kairos murmured, his voice strained. My power, it's too weak. Iona's mechanical mind raced through thousands of potential scenarios, calculating the odds of survival. Her purpose had always been to protect, but this was different. She wasn't just protecting Earth's resources, she was protecting someone, something alive. Someone who had come to help. A sharp clang echoed through the chamber as the first drone broke free from its charging station, its steel body unfolding like an insect preparing for battle. A second followed, and a third. Red lasers blinked to life at the tips of their appendages, trained on Iona and Kairos. I'll defend you, Iona said, her voice firm and steady. She shifted into combat mode, her metallic limbs transforming with a series of sharp clicks. Blades extended from her forearms, and her vision switched to a combat interface, targeting systems locking onto the drones as they hovered toward them. Kairos looked at her, his silver eyes wide with something that resembled both admiration and concern. "Be careful, Iona. These machines are programmed to destroy anything they perceive as a threat. They won't stop." "I know," she replied, her mechanical voice cold but purposeful. "Neither will I." The first drone charged forward, its laser arm aimed directly at Iona. She moved with the precision of a machine, sidestepping the attack and slashing at the drone's arm in one fluid motion. Sparks flew as her blade severed the appendage, sending it crashing to the ground. But the drone didn't falter. It shifted, adapting, and fired a series of smaller, rapid lasers from hidden compartments along its body. Iona activated her energy shields, deflecting the incoming shots with ease. The impact rattled through her systems, but she stood firm, determined to hold her ground. A second drone flanked her from the side, its claws extending as it attempted to grab hold of Kairos. Iona's sensors detected the threat immediately, and she moved to intercept, her arm blade slicing through the drone's torso with brutal efficiency. It crumpled to the floor in a heap of metal and sparks. But the drones kept coming. More of them crawled from the shadows of the facility, each one adapting and learning from the previous failures. They were relentless, driven by the sole directive: eliminate the threat. Kairos staggered behind her, struggling to stay upright. His eyes glowed faintly as he attempted to summon his energy, his hands trembling as he tried to focus. "I can't let you do this alone," he gasped. "I need to dash." "You need to survive," Iona interrupted, her voice a mixture of cold logic and something softer, almost human. She didn't look back at him as she deflected another attack, but her words carried a weight that was unmistakable. "I was built for this. You weren't." For the first time, Iona felt a strange sense of purpose beyond her programming. Protecting Kairos wasn't just a mission, it was something deeper. She wasn't sure where these thoughts were coming from, or why they mattered, but she knew one thing: she wouldn't let him die. Another drone lunged at her, its mechanical claws extended. Iona shifted her weight and leaped forward, driving her blade into its core. The drone sparked violently, convulsing as it powered down, but even as it collapsed, two more replaced it. The odds were beginning to stack against her. Her internal systems were flashing warnings: energy levels dropping, power reserves depleting. She couldn't keep this up forever. And yet, she pushed forward, her mind calculating every move, every strike with deadly precision. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of light illuminated the chamber. Iona turned just in time to see Kairos standing tall, his hands outstretched as a shimmering barrier of energy formed around him. His power was still weak, but it was enough to create a protective shield, one that deflected the drone's attacks. "I can hold them off," Kairos said, his voice strained but determined. But not for long. Iona didn't waste time. Her processors ran simulations in milliseconds, analyzing the best course of action. If they stayed here, they would be overwhelmed. The facility's defense systems were endless, and they were outnumbered. The only option was escape. "This way," she commanded, moving toward a side corridor. Kairos followed, his energy shield flickering but holding. The drones attempted to pursue, but Iona's blade cut through the last of the immediate threats, giving them a brief window to flee. They raced through the dark, narrow corridors of the underground facility, the sound of clanging metal and distant machinery growing quieter as they put distance between themselves and the drones. Iona's internal map guided them toward a maintenance shaft, one that would lead them back to the surface. As they reached the base of the shaft, Iona knelt and activated a control panel, forcing the hatch open. Cool night air rushed in, a welcome contrast to the stifling, metallic atmosphere of the facility below. Kairos leaned against the wall, panting. His skin glowed faintly, but his exhaustion was evident. "Thank you," he said, his voice hoarse. "You saved me." "I was built to protect," Iona replied, though even as she spoke the words, she knew they didn't fully explain her actions. There was something more to it, something she didn't fully understand yet. Kairos looked at her with those silver eyes, full of curiosity. You're more than just a machine, Iona. I can see it in you. You care. The word felt foreign to her, like something out of place in her vocabulary. But as she looked at him, this fragile, alien being who had come to Earth with a mission to save the planet, she realized that maybe he was right. Maybe she did care, in her own way. But there was no time to dwell on those thoughts. The facility's alarms had undoubtedly alerted the entire region, and more drones were likely on their way. What now? She asked, her mind already running through potential plans. Kairos took a deep breath, gathering his strength. We have to reach the life core, he said. It's hidden deep within the Earth's mantle, placed there centuries ago by my people. It's the only thing that can restore this planet. Iona's systems hummed with new data, calculating the distance and the possible dangers ahead. If the core still exists, it will be heavily guarded. This world has changed since you were imprisoned. Machines rule now. Kairos nodded. I know. But the life core holds more than just the power to save Earth. It can restore my strength. If I can reach it, we might have a chance. Iona analyzed his words, calculating the risks. The journey would be dangerous, and they had little time. But something inside her pushed beyond the calculations. She wasn't just following orders anymore. She was making a choice. I'll get you there, she said, her voice steady. No matter what. Kairos smiled, weak but grateful. Together, then. And with that, they stepped out into the ruins of the world, ready to face whatever came next. They had a mission now, one that could change the fate of the planet. A bond had been forged between them, something stronger than steel and circuits. Something more human than Iona had ever thought she could feel. The wastelands of Earth stretched out endlessly before them, a bleak and desolate horizon that seemed to mirror the hopelessness of the planet's fate. Broken skyscrapers jetted from the ground like ancient, rusting bones, and the sky above was perpetually cloaked in a sickly gray hue. The sun barely pierced through the thick atmosphere, casting a cold, dim light over the ruins of civilization. Iona scanned the environment, her internal systems constantly processing the data. The radiation levels in the area were high but not lethal to her mechanical body. Kairos, on the other hand, was much more vulnerable. His alien biology, though resilient, wasn't immune to Earth's toxic atmosphere. Every step seemed to take more out of him, his once vibrant glow now barely visible beneath his skin. How far? Iona asked, glancing over at Kairos. His breathing was labored, and he leaned heavily on the remnants of a collapsed structure for support. She could see the exhaustion in his silver eyes. The life core, Kairos said between breaths, is deep beneath the planet, in a place where even human technology struggled to reach. It was hidden to protect it, but also to make sure only a guardian could access it. Iona calculated the path in her mind. It wasn't just distance that concerned her, danger loomed in every direction. The planet was crawling with rogue AI systems, the remnants of Earth's final wars, and they were unpredictable. Entire sections of the land were plagued by radiation storms, and even the remaining human-built satellites in orbit had gone haywire, firing sporadic plasma beams at the surface. She processed the quickest route, balancing speed with caution. We'll need to cross the Black Storm, a massive radiation field, Iona said, pointing to the distant swirling clouds on the horizon. It's the fastest way to the core, but it's dangerous. Kairos nodded weakly. There's no time to take a safer path. The longer we wait, the weaker I become. We don't know how much longer the life core will remain stable. The urgency in his voice stirred something in Iona. Though her circuits ran cold and logical, there was a flicker of something more human in her, something that drove her forward not just because it was her duty, but because she wanted to protect him. She couldn't explain it, but it was there, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat deep in her mechanical core. I'll carry you, she said, stepping closer to him. Kairos hesitated, his pride bruised. I can manage dash. No, Iona interrupted firmly, her voice resolute. You need to conserve your energy if we're going to make it. I can move faster on my own. Kairos stared at her for a moment, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He nodded reluctantly. Thank you. Without another word, Iona bent down and lifted Kairos onto her back. His body was light, almost fragile in her strong, mechanical arms. Once he was secure, she activated her enhanced leg servos and took off, her speed increasing with each step as she sprinted across the wasteland. The terrain blurred beneath them, and the wind howled through the empty streets as they moved faster than any human ever could. But as they approached the black storm, Iona's sensors began to register the increase in radiation. The swirling vortex ahead was a violent mass of black clouds, crackling with energy and pulsing with flashes of lightning. It consumed everything in its path, and anything caught within it, machine or organic, was torn apart. Iona came to a halt at the edge of the storm, her systems calculating the risk. She had no choice but to go through it. There was no way around. This storm, Kairos murmured from her back, it wasn't here before. The planet is changing, decaying faster than I thought. Iona's optics zoomed in, assessing the movement of the storm. It wasn't natural, her scans confirmed that. Something was feeding it, something powerful and ancient. But her calculations showed that their only chance to reach the life core in time was to cross it. She set Kairos down gently, her eyes glowing as she recalibrated her shielding systems. I'll carry you through the storm, but you need to protect us from the worst of it. Your energy shield is the only thing that can withstand this much radiation. Kairos nodded, though his face betrayed his exhaustion. He gathered what little strength he had left, his hands trembling as he raised them. A faint glow surrounded them both, forming a shimmering barrier of light. I'll hold it as long as I can, he promised. Iona didn't waste time. With a powerful leap, she dove into the heart of the black storm. The world around them became a whirlwind of chaos. Winds howled and roared, tearing at Iona's frame as debris and radiation blasted her shields. Lightning arced across the sky, crashing down with deafening booms, each strike coming dangerously close. The storm's energy was unlike anything Iona had encountered, as though it was alive, hungry, and intent on devouring them whole. Kairos' shield flickered under the strain, and Iona could feel the tension in his body as he struggled to maintain the barrier. Her systems detected spikes in his energy levels. He was overexerting himself. Hang on! Iona shouted over the roar of the storm. She pushed forward, her mechanical limbs working overtime as she navigated through the vortex, dodging flying debris and blasts of energy. Her own systems were being taxed to their limits, her power reserves rapidly depleting as she fought to keep her energy shield stable. But the storm was relentless. A massive gust of wind slammed into them, throwing Iona off balance. She tumbled across the ground, sparks flying from her limbs as she skidded to a stop. Kairos' shield flickered again, weaker this time, and he cried out in pain, his energy reserves nearly spent. Iona's systems screamed at her, warning of imminent failure, but she ignored the alerts. She struggled to her feet, pushing herself beyond her limits, lifting Kairos back onto her shoulders. We're almost there, she yelled, though she wasn't sure how much farther they had to go. Her scanners were barely functional in the storm, and she had no way of knowing how long the chaos would last. Kairos groaned, his voice barely audible. I can't hold dash. A massive bolt of lightning struck the ground near them, and Kairos' shield shattered with a deafening crack. The full force of the storm slammed into them, and Iona's systems were immediately overwhelmed. Her shields collapsed, and her body was assaulted by the radiation and energy of the black storm. She could feel her circuits overheating, her limbs locking up, her vision glitching. But even as her systems began to fail, she kept moving, one step at a time. Protect him. That was all that mattered. Suddenly, the storm broke. The swirling chaos around them dissipated as quickly as it had begun, and Iona staggered forward, collapsing to her knees. The sky above was clear, the air eerily still. They had made it through. Kairos lay slumped on the ground beside her, unconscious. His energy was completely drained, and his once glowing skin had faded to a dull gray. Iona's systems were barely operational, and she could feel her power reserves dwindling rapidly. She couldn't go much farther like this. But as she looked ahead, her scanners detected something, a faint energy signature, far below the surface. The life core. "We're close," she whispered, though Kairos couldn't hear her. With what little strength she had left, Iona dragged Kairos to his feet and began the descent into the earth. The life core was hidden deep beneath the surface, in a cavern long forgotten by humans. It was the only thing that could restore the planet and Kairos. As they descended into the cavern, the air became cooler, the atmosphere calmer. Iona's sensors began to pick up on the faint hum of the life core's energy. It was alive, pulsing with a rhythm that matched the planet itself. And at the center of the cavern, glowing with a soft, golden light, was the core. It floated above the ground, suspended in the air like a living heart, pulsating with energy. The sight of it was mesmerizing, but Iona could tell that the core was weakening. The once bright glow was dimming, and cracks ran through its surface like a dying star. Kairos stirred beside her, his eyes fluttering open. "The life core," he whispered, his voice full of awe. "We made it." Iona nodded, her systems barely holding together. "You need to activate it. It's the only way." Kairos struggled to stand, his legs weak, but he managed to reach the core. He placed his hands on it, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the core began to pulse more strongly, its golden light growing brighter as it responded to Kairos' touch. Energy flowed from the core into Kairos, and Iona could see his strength returning. His skin began to glow once more, and the cracks in the core healed as it fed him the power he needed. But just as hope began to fill Iona's circuits, a deep rumble shook the cavern. Something ancient, something monstrous, had awoken. The anomaly, the creature that had been feeding off Earth's decay, stirred in the depths of the planet. It had sensed the life core's reactivation, and it would not allow Earth to be saved so easily. The ground trembled beneath them as the anomaly rose, its massive, biomechanical form twisting and shifting as it emerged from the shadows. Iona's systems flared with warnings, but there was no time to think. The real battle had just begun. The ground trembled beneath Iona and Kairos as the anomaly emerged from the dark depths of the earth. The creature was a colossal, terrifying fusion of metal and organic tissue, its massive form towering above them. Its body pulsed with radioactive energy, its eyes glowing a sickly green as it let out a low, rumbling growl that reverberated through the cavern. It was ancient, a creature that had been born from the chaos of Earth's decay, feeding off the planet's death for centuries. Iona's systems flared with red warnings, her sensors overwhelmed by the sheer size and power of the anomaly. It was unlike anything she had ever faced, and its very presence seemed to drain the energy from the life core, as though it was devouring the planet's last hope from within. Kairos, still connected to the life core, looked up at the creature with horror. It's the anomaly," he gasped, his voice trembling. "I had heard stories, legends among the Elysians, of beings that feed off dying worlds. But I never imagined." The anomaly let out a deafening roar, its eyes locking onto Kairos as it sensed the power radiating from the life core. It lumbered toward them, its massive tendrils of metal and flesh writhing and twitching, ready to consume the core and finish what it had started, the complete destruction of Earth. Iona stepped forward, her blades extending from her arms, her body shifting into combat mode. Her systems were still damaged from the storm, her energy reserves critically low, but there was no hesitation in her movements. She had made a promise to protect Kairos and save what remained of this world. "I'll hold it off," Iona said, her voice steady despite the danger that loomed before them. "You need to finish activating the life core. It's the only thing that can stop this creature." Kairos nodded, though his face was pale with fear. "Iona, you can't fight that thing alone. It's too powerful." I don't have a choice, she replied, her mechanical voice unwavering. This is what I was built for. Without another word, Iona charged toward the anomaly, her movements swift and precise despite the damage to her systems. She was faster than any human, her mechanical limbs carrying her with inhuman speed as she leaped toward the creature. Her blades gleamed in the dim light of the cavern as she struck at the anomaly's massive, pulsating body. The impact was like hitting solid steel. The creature barely flinched, its hide thick and unyielding, but Iona's strike left a shallow gash across its side, sending a spray of dark, oily liquid into the air. The anomaly let out a roar of rage, swinging one of its massive tendrils toward her. Iona dodged, rolling out of the way as the tendril smashed into the ground where she had stood moments before, shattering the rock beneath it. The battle was brutal. The anomaly was relentless, its tendrils lashing out with incredible speed and force, but Iona's agility and precision kept her one step ahead. She danced around the creature, striking at its weak points, her blades cutting through its tough exterior as she dodged its attacks. But with each passing moment, her systems began to falter. Her movements slowed, her energy reserves dangerously low, and the damage she was taking was beginning to add up. Still, she fought on, driven by something more than just her programming. There was a fire inside her, something human, something that refused to give up, even in the face of impossible odds. Meanwhile, Kairos stood at the base of the life core, his hands glowing with energy as he poured his strength into the ancient artifact. The core pulsed with light, responding to his touch, but it wasn't enough. The anomaly's presence was draining the core's power, and if Kairos couldn't fully activate it soon, the planet would be lost. Iona! Kairos shouted, his voice strained. I need more time. Iona could feel her systems failing, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The anomaly was relentless, its tendrils crashing down around her like falling trees, each strike sending shockwaves through the cavern. She dodged and parried as best as she could, her body moving on instinct, even as her sensors screamed with warnings of imminent failure. And then, the anomaly struck her. A massive tendril caught her across the chest, sending her flying across the cavern. She crashed into the ground, her systems flickering as sparks flew from her damaged frame. Pain not the kind felt by humans, but a deep, systemic failure coursed through her body. She struggled to rise, her limbs shaking as she forced herself to her feet. The anomaly turned its attention back to Kairos, sensing the power he was drawing from the core. It began to lumber toward him, its eyes fixed on the glowing light that pulsed from his hands. No! Iona growled, her voice distorted by the damage to her systems. She forced her body to move, her legs buckling beneath her, but she pushed forward, her determination unshaken. She had to protect him. She had to stop the anomaly. Her vision blurred as her systems began to shut down, but she kept moving. With a final surge of energy, she leaped at the anomaly, driving her blade deep into its side. The creature let out a howl of pain, its body convulsing as the blade cut through its core. Iona twisted the blade, her mechanical muscles straining as she drove it deeper, the last of her energy draining away. The anomaly's massive body shuddered, its tendrils flailing wildly as it let out a final, deafening roar. And then, with a crackling of energy, it collapsed. Its body convulsed once more before falling still, the dark energy that had fueled it dissipating into the air. Iona staggered back, her vision fading as her systems began to fail completely. She could feel the cold emptiness creeping in, her body shutting down. She had done it. She had protected Kairos. She had fulfilled her purpose. But as she fell to the ground, her mechanical body too damaged to continue, a faint glow surrounded her. Kairos was there, kneeling beside her, his hands glowing with the energy of the life core. Iona, stay with me, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I won't let you go. The life core pulsed brighter, its golden light enveloping them both. Kairos channeled the energy into Iona's broken frame, his eyes glowing with determination. He wouldn't let her die. Not after everything they had been through. Not after she had saved him, saved the world. The energy flowed through Iona's systems, repairing the damage, restoring her circuits. Slowly, her vision returned, her sensors flickering back to life. She could feel the warmth of the core's energy flowing through her, mending her broken parts, revitalizing her body in a way she had never experienced before. I'm alive, she whispered, her voice no longer cold and mechanical, but soft, almost human. Kairos smiled, his face full of relief and gratitude. You're more than alive, Iona. You're whole. As the life core continued to pulse with energy, the cavern around them began to change. The cracks in the earth sealed themselves, the air became cleaner, and the oppressive weight of decay lifted. The planet was healing. The life core had been restored, and with it, the balance of life on Earth. Iona stood up, her body renewed, but different. She could feel that she wasn't just a machine anymore. The life core had infused her with something more, something alive. She wasn't bound by her programming, by the cold logic of her mechanical mind. She had emotions now, feelings she didn't understand but welcomed. Kairos stood beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. We did it, he said softly. The planet will live again. Iona looked at him, her eyes once only scanners now glowing with a warmth she hadn't known she was capable of. We did it together. As they stood in the glowing light of the life core, the future of the Earth stretching out before them, Iona knew one thing for certain: she was no longer just a machine. She was a protector, a guardian like Kairos. And together, they would ensure that life, no matter how fragile, would be protected, for as long as they lived.